she goes like, "You're hurt." And I wrote down, "Of course he is. Of course she patches him up. Of course the wound is magically healing. Of course she is awkward about touching him."
You're listening to Getting Fae'd. We,
Meike,
Lukas,
and Lea are reading A Court of Thorns and Roses for the very first time. Today we are covering chapters 11 and 12. Get Fae'd with us!
Woo!
So, before we head on into the nitty-gritty of it all, we got some listeners' feedback.
thanks for that.
Wow.
Well, someone told us that we misplaced ACOTAR in the YA category, even though it's supposed to be new adult, which sounds very fancy.
Preposterous.
I have to say, I think I knew that. I know, since it's labeled as super spicy and sexy and stuff, I didn't really think it was YA, but it feels very YA. And I think
Feels very YA-ish so far.
I think that's why I say YA and it feels YA, and that happens in YA a lot, even though I know it's technically not YA, but so far it feels very YA because she is young, and I feel like all the tropes of YA happen in this book and nothing feels adult-ish yet.
Yes. She's on her journey to kind of find herself and going on an adventure.
Yeah, it's very coming of age also.
Yeah.
Yes. But I have to admit, I'm not familiar with all those different genres, I think. And when I think of young adults, yes, that includes people that are under 18. But I feel like young adult could also refer to people that are older than 18 because it's young adults.
I
In
feel
bookstores,
young adult.
is labeled 12 to 18.
Yeah, but I think if you don't know that, but just hear the term young adults, I feel like it could include teenagers, but also, young adults.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think this whole new adult and is there something else? Just adult? I don't know. What's a new adult? What's a normal adult?
Adult.
I don't feel adulty. No.
I feel very young adult.
Yeah, same.
Yes.
I guess per definition I'm not because I'm over 18.
How
but
dare you?
I don't often feel like it.
But yeah, thanks for letting us know. I think it's probably a good idea to let people know that it's not YA. And I mean, by reaching out to us and telling us, that kind of includes warning us that something more adulty is gonna happen.
Well, so far it's pretty family friendly, but I just hope this book will stop being family friendly from now on.
Well, I think, at least in my library and bookstore, it's in the YA section. Maybe that's just because the bookstore is pretty small and it only has a fantasy and then a YA fantasy section. That's pretty small, but I think they labeled it as YA.
Well,
Now we know.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. Now we know and we can label it correctly. Although we probably will compare to some YA tropes, but we all know that it's actually not YA.
yeah, so let's recap what happened in the last few chapters. Feyre blew off Tamlin to go on riding with Lucian. And there they encountered the Bogge, whatever.
The boogeyman.
Yes, which is a powerful, dangerous, amorphous being that was trespassing on Tamlin's land.
Oh no.
And when they came home, Tamlin was incredibly jealous and waiting for them. And when he heard about the Bogge, he stormed off to hunt it.
Cool guy.
Wow, he's so powerful.
Yeah, so he is supposedly powerful enough to confront the Bogge. And in the night, Feyre is anxiously waiting for his return. But then, suddenly, she sees her father appearing in the garden. And that's where the chapters ended.
Wow. But what happens next?
Yes. So Feyre starts scrambling her few belongings together and climbing out the window to meet with her father. She is filled with surprise and relief and maybe even admiration that he took on this long and arduous journey to save her.
She's so stupid.
Yes.
It's on the one hand, it's stupid. On the other hand, it's kind of sad
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
she still thinks that her stupidest father might come and save her.
She's kind of obsessed with him, and I don't understand why. I mean, she has this dream of living with him. Like,
Yeah,
she wants her
that's so
sisters
weird.
to be married off and live somewhere else. And she wants to stay home with her father, who doesn't care about her,
I
apparently.
don't think she's obsessed with him, but rather with the promise she made to her mom. And that just kind of transfers to her father, maybe.
I don't know. I feel like when she, talks about his carvings and stuff, she's like, oh, we could have been artists together. And then she wants to live with him and just spend her time with him forever, tend to him and, I don't know, live a happy life carving wood.
Yeah, I think she has this idea that if they're all cared for, if her sisters are married well off, then finally her father can be there for her and not wallow in self-pity or something. She's really desperate and tries to find explanations how he could have managed to get there. And he is about to leave the estate grounds and she's eager to follow him. But then suddenly a massive hand wrapped around my arm and she is stopped by Tamlin.
That made me so angry because his claws are out and he doesn't know she's seeing her father. He just sees her running out of the estate. And his reaction is to grab her forcefully with his claws out.
That's
but
true.
he's like, oh, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. You can leave the estate. I wouldn't mind. No, go on.
I think his fangs are out as well.
I feel like the book is showing us that he is angry because I feel like in these few chapters we will learn that he cannot really control his claws and things and they always come out when he's angry.
He's so possessive.
Yeah, he has.
He's just a tortured soul. He
He
is
has mood
misunderstood.
swings. I hate him.
Yeah.
And it makes me so mad that he actually saved her life here.
So yeah, it turns out it's not her father, who could have thought.
What? Huh?
But it's a Fae being that lures victims by appearing as someone they desire.
Just as we predicted. We're so good.
At least we're smarter than her. I felt like the book made it pretty clear it's not him. She even says, my crippled, broken father came. No, he's crippled and broken and not just his body, also his spirit. He wouldn't come for you.
He moved with surprising swiftness.
Yes, and then he's not running towards her, which a father would probably do
Yes.
if his child was kidnapped. But he's like staying out of the estate and like beckons her to come to him,
Yeah.
which is pretty sketchy.
He's also not talking and just gesturing to follow
Yeah.
him. She always finds these excuses. She thinks that he must have hidden the horses deeper in the forest and yeah, it just shows her desperation. This being appears as different desires. So it appears as her father, then as a bow and arrows of ash wood.
Yeah, and that really goes to show that her desire in this moment is to fucking kill Tamlin.
Yeah.
And leave, because the next thing is a large pack laden with supplies. And then the last thing before she sees her father again, it's her weeping sisters.
That made me kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not only showing up as desires, because it's probably not her desire to see her weeping sisters, but
to
help
save
her.
her weeping sisters.
yeah, to help them. Tamlin scolds her that she should have been aware that her human senses would betray her. And on the one hand, I thought, oh no, is our theory disproven? Is she human? Or is she maybe just half Fae?
I don't know if this means anything. I just think Tamlin wants to talk down to her.
Maybe even as a fairy or fae, you have to get used to like the magic of Prithian and
Probably.
all the stuff the beasts do.
I hope so, because I still want her to be at least half Fae.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the first time, she holds her own against Tamlin.
Nice.
And I'd like to quote that. Can you blame me? My crippled father appears beneath my window and you think I'm not going to run for him? Did you actually think I'd gladly stay here forever, even if you're taking care of my family, or for some treaty that had nothing to do with me and allows your kind to slaughter humans as you see fit?
Slay
Slay.
Queen!
Yes, I was very proud of her.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, do I start liking Feyre? That would be cool. Or maybe I just really, really hate Tamlin and that's why I love that so much.
We have a common enemy.
I mean, this is maybe a hot take, but Tamlin is not cool in this situation.
Yes.
He's very much victim blaming her, like calls her a fool for believing him, and I get her point. Like, I don't know if I would have fallen for that, but I can't really put myself in her situation.
Yeah, he still doesn't understand that she just wants to go home. And I cannot fathom how he cannot understand this. It's just so stupid.
This episode will be 50% Tamlin hate, won't it? Again.
Probably. In the conversation that follows, Tamlin makes unmistakably clear that Feyre has no reason to return home and that her family is well cared for and that she has fulfilled her promise.
And she kind of starts to get it. I feel like that realization slowly sinks in, and that makes me actually kind of excited for her character development. Because if she doesn't have that promise holding her development back, she could actually go places personality-wise.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be interesting. I'm just worried, like she says, in some way, I have been freed. And if she means Tamlin, if she at some point is like, thank you for getting me out of there, I'm going to scream. I'm going to scream in this podcast.
Yeah, at this point, I felt like I finally understood the premise of the story, because her identity that for the whole time was being a provider for her family has been stripped away, and now she is kind of moldable to be molded into something new, which is probably met with a feeling of resentment, but also I fear gratitude. And yeah, her life in this new society can truly begin. I think that's why I'm not sure how I feel about her state, because on the one hand, I don't like that she is moldable right now, but I also want her to develop.
We'll see in what direction, though.
Yes.
If Tamlin is the big bad guy in this situation, he might use this moldable state of her to like get her to do something evil and join his side or something.
Yeah, he will 100% try to groom her.
Yes. So now that she has accepted her new life, she asks some questions about it.
Nice. But
Yes.
just one note before we continue. It says, Tamlin eyed me sidelong, and I feel like that's a fun way to describe a bombastic side eye. I feel like this joke is already outdated by the time we are recording this.
Probably.
It will never be. Yeah, but we learn a few things. We learn that all the other sentries are stationed at the border, and I think that's something different than the wall. So there's the wall, and then there's the court border.
Oh, that's what he meant? I thought he meant like the border to the mortal realms.
I thought so too at first, but he didn't say the wall. He said the border, and then later he speaks about the borders. So, and before that we only heard that people were stationed at the wall, and now we learn that people are stationed at the border. So we will see what happens with that. And we learn that Tamlin was trained as a warrior to serve in his father's war band, and that he did not want to be the lord of this manor and rule over these lands, and that he is a tortured soul who does not want to be in this position.
Yeah, this actually reminded me of my very first D&D character.
Yeah, me too. I wrote down, bring up Balthazar from D&D.
I'm just gonna explain this as if you guys are not in this campaign as well. My first D&D character, Balthazar, the Dragon Rider of the North. When I came up with him like 4 years ago, I had this idea that he's the prince of his kingdom, but he doesn't want the responsibility. And then he like runs away and finds this adventuring party, and that he's just like a tortured soul. But I came to realize that he actually kind of sucks and doesn't see his privileges. So what I did in the campaign is that I just improvised and said that his parents, so the rulers of this kingdom, are basically the Nazis and like behead children and are absolutely awful, and that's why he ran away. And now we have to face them. Yeah, that's fun.
You mean you panicked when we confronted you with that?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very common trope to have a character that is noble but doesn't want it. And I wondered why that is such an interesting trope. I mean, it's used so often, and I think it works only because readers, but not only like everybody, likes luxury. I mean, royalty and luxury and money and being rich, it's just something that sounds appealing, but we also hate capitalism. So if you have a main character that is rich and luxurious and has all that, but he doesn't actually want it, we can be like, he's one of us. He's one of us. We're a team. But you having that, you can enjoy that, and I can enjoy it with you. So we don't feel bad about him being rich and cool and having everything because he doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And that annoys me.
And it's also...
But it works. It works. Every time.
It presents some sort of hurdle that the character has to overcome, and where the protagonist can help in some way. Maybe she will help him to be a better ruler and not be as cold-hearted anymore and learn to appreciate his position or something.
Yeah, I feel that's the story trope that is being set up here.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, Balthazar is not a patronizing asshole. He's actually a nice guy, I feel like. So that's why we can like him more.
Yeah. I actually have a prediction, or 1.5 predictions.
This is Conspiracy Corner with Getting Fae'd.
Let's go. So yeah, my first thought was
No, you have to put your hands up and say maybe.
Maybe. No, I'm not at the maybe part yet.
Okay.
Because I had 2 thoughts. And my first thought was that maybe the intended heir fell. So that was probably his brother or something, and he had to take over. Or maybe...
The hands were up.
Yes, the ruling her chose him to rule because she needs him in some way because of his special powers or something.
Good guess.
Good guess. We will just see. But yeah, this whole chapter actually made me pretty excited for like the whole book series. Because I feel like with Puca, as we later learn this creature is called, we have another pretty interesting and powerful enemy or villain. And that just kind of slowly starts painting the picture of Prythian. And I'm really looking forward to Feyre maybe traveling these lands in future books.
Mm-hmm. I actually, right now, maybe my opinion will change, feel like it's a little bit not so subtle world building, because we meet these creatures, learn their powers, and then they go away, and with the Bogge, we never see it again, because, spoiler alert, it will be defeated in the next chapter. And we learn it, and then we learn the name, and then they're gone. And so you're like, okay, nice, now I have a name for it, thank you, okay, done.
Yeah, maybe I'm just easy to please.
Yeah,
I mean, the appeal of high fantasy worlds is that you have a very different world to your own. And I think whenever someone tells you in a book that something new and unique is existing, it's just exciting. Because you get to learn something new. Even though the Puca is not a thing she invented.
Yes.
Because immediately I was like, Harvey, is it you? I don't know, does anyone know Harvey, the play, which then was later turned into a movie and also inspired one of my favorite point-and-click adventures, Edna and Harvey, The Breakout.
Check it out.
On Steam.
Yeah, before we learn of the Puca's name, I thought it was quite funny, and I loved how Feyre notices that Tamlin does not like his position, and she just thinks like, yeah, he needs a diplomat to speak for him. He can't do this.
Though I kind of wonder if Lucian is actually a good emissary. He's just very straightforward. He makes fun of everyone, and he doesn't give a fuck about anything. I wonder how he is in court.
I mean, we've only experienced him really interacting with Feyre.
That's true.
And I guess his friend in the room. I feel like he is a extrovert, people's person. And maybe he can handle himself in court situations. Or maybe he learned that after he lost his eye.
I think he can be very charming if he wants to be.
Sexy fox.
Yes.
In the house.
I always forget that they are wearing masks.
Yeah, same.
I'm always taken aback when Feyre thinks about the masks. And I was like, oh shit, yes. But yeah, we learn about the name of this being. It's a Puca. And fun fact, it's a part of Celtic folklore, a being of Celtic folklore.
Also the name?
Yes.
Puca, yeah.
So Wikipedia told me that it can be called the Puca, the Puca, the Fuca, or the Glashtin.
That little fucker. And that's similar to this Harvey character.
Well, in the play, or the movie, Harvey, the giant white rabbit, appearing to the protagonist, whose name I forgot, it's a Puca. They say it. He says it, I think. There's a whole dialogue scene about being a Puca. And I think in folklore, or especially in this play, Pucas are not very evil.
Yes.
They're just little goblins or gnomes. I think gnome would be like a good equivalent. I think in German we have the Puck.
Yes.
Which is
That's
an equivalent.
What you play hockey with.
Yes. It's also like a little house thing that lives with you and kind of creates friendly chaos, I would say.
Yes. So Wikipedia told me that they...
Don't say that, you will sound so knowledgeable.
That they do not actually eat their victims, but they catch them and throw them in a bog and then laugh at them.
In a bog?
In a swamp.
But not
the bog. No. And they can also warn you of impending doom because they can speak the human language.
Okay, so maybe the Puca here wanted to lure Feyre away, to tell her that Tamlin is up to no good.
That would be actually kind of cool.
Or he wanted to throw her in his swamp and laugh at her.
That would be so funny.
Yes, that's a good theory, but Meike just said maybe, and her hands were not up.
How
I'm
dare
so
you?
sorry.
So it's like half a theory.
Yeah, it's just half a prediction.
But yeah, Tamlin says that they actually do not throw you in a swamp, but they capture you and eat you slowly.
Yeah, if Tamlin says so.
It must be true, because
I mean,
he cannot
can't
lie.
Yeah, I feel like every time Feyre says they can't lie, she's like in that meme, slowly putting on more clown makeup.
I really don't know if it's just establishing a rule so that we know they cannot lie, or if she's just plain wrong about it.
I guess we will find out.
I hope so. I fear it just stays there in the air and just is not explained.
You'd say there's something in the air tonight.
Yep. So Tamlin explains that there are a lot of dangerous creatures in Prythian that
Like him.
yes, that used to be held in check by people like him. But since the Blight, they roam free. And I feel like this is quite... I'm not sure if it's clever, but this way the Faelands are shown to be civilized and cruelly dangerous at the same time, which is certainly a choice. Because, I mean, like, we were so happy that all her prejudices were not true and they were actually, like, normal people. And now it's like, we are normal people, but there's also danger here.
It's like Australia. You have to be careful.
Yes, actually, that's kind of true.
Watch out for any Puca sitting in your shoe.
So then there is a break in the chapter and we have our first time jump.
Montage.
Woo!
Well, to be fair, we had a time jump when she was unconscious for 2 days.
Yeah.
But this is not a time jump. This is, I feel like, in a movie, a montage.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
right.
There's some fun, upbeat, whimsical music playing, and we see glimpses of her everyday life in the manor.
Wow.
Yes, so we're skimming through the next 3 days where Feyre joins Lucian on many patrols while Tamlin is out hunting the bog. And the whole time Tamlin is in a grumpy mood where he doesn't want company at all and will kill anyone who tries to be in his company or something, tries to help him.
I like this portion of the chapter because I think it's mainly there to show us that Feyre accepts her fate and is ready to move on.
Yes.
She's like, without the weight of that promise, I was left hollow and empty. And I annotated in my book, could that make her interesting? And I just want to coin a new scientific term here. Mm-hmm. I want to call it personality vacuum.
Ooh.
Because like her whole drive and motivation is now gone. And that makes some room in her character for a personality, I guess, which we haven't really seen so far.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if, like, the people in her life now use it to mold her, as I said, or
Yeah.
if she is able to develop her own being.
I think that's basically the plot now. Her struggle that I feel like Tamlin will try to use that as like a weakness of hers to get her to do what he wants. And she will have to overcome that and fight against it. And that's just, I feel like that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm torn right now. I think, despite my prediction that I hope is still true, that Tamlin is set up to be a love interest. And
Your prediction being that
he's her father.
her dad.
this is quite a conflicting thing. But yeah, I think he's set up to be her love interest. And so if she develops feelings for him now and is like, oh no, he is so tortured, I will have to stand by his side and assist him and be a rock for him, or I don't know, I think it will feel or read like it's her own choice and she's making her own choices, but it will feel like Tamlin is using her, and I hope this gets resolved in some kind of way.
So if he's actually a dad, while editing this podcast, I started like a soundboard collection of like fun sound bits and outtakes, and I just want to play one here that you, Lea, said.
Oh no, it's incest again.
That was it. You'll have to read it in the episode.
For her to love Tamlin because he is so broken and unhappy in his place and stuff, it would just be, again, her trying to care for someone. Like, she would get out of that vow to care for someone, to go into a relationship, to care for someone. And that's not very healthy.
You're
so
right.
I really hope for her to care for herself for a time, because she never did that. She always just did things for her family. And now I don't want her to go to doing things for Tamlin straight away.
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be healthy, but that is something that happens in real-life relationships. So it would be a realistic and not forced character development. I mean, I would be mad if she like falls for Tamlin, but I would get it. And if in the end she overcomes that
And leaves Tamlin.
it would be a good character arc.
That's true. I mean, there are a lot of books in this series, so there's definitely room for development.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
How long have we been with Feyre now?
2 days in a village, then
Yes.
she was taken. We have a 2-day time jump. So
So
that's
that's
like
4
4
days.
or 5 days, I don't know. And,
And
then she spends like 1 day there, that's 5 days, and then we have a 3-day time jump,
That would be 8 days.
8 days.
Okay. Yeah. On the evening of the third day, we rejoin them at dinner.
Jesus appears.
No. Tamlin leaves. Tamlin leaves in his grumpy state to hunt the bog again. And at this point, I start to love Lucien more and more because he is described as sitting lumped in his seat, holy and dignified for a Faelord. And I was just like, damn.
A slumping sexy fox. That's just, we love to see it.
Yes. But yeah, Feyre is bothered by the lonely and cold position Tamlin is in. And obviously, it feels like it could be a setup for romance.
Yeah.
Chapter 11 ends with a dream Feyre has.
Our first dream in this book.
True, it's written in...
Cursive.
Yes. And she's dreaming of when she has killed the wolf. But when he falls, he is back in his original Fae form. And when she wakes up, she is horrified and feels remorse and shame. And I was wondering, do you think this is just to show her remorse? Or is there more behind it?
It could be either way. I feel like maybe it's just Sarah J. Maas finally giving us her acknowledging, Feyre acknowledging what really happened. Like, she killed a person that was part of someone's life and like had their own life.
Yes.
But it could also mean like sort of like a vision that her killing Andras would start something. You know, maybe she took a very important player out and we don't know for what side. Maybe he was one of the good guys. Maybe he was one of the very bad guys and now they need a replacement, which could be her. We don't know that, but it kind of feels like maybe it's telling us that her killing this wolf, who wasn't just a wolf, means something. I have to say I'm usually not the biggest fan of dreams in books because often they just work as a way to tell us something very outright. I guess in a lot of stories, a character has a dream, and in that dream, fear is described very explicitly, or love, or like a vision, or someone's power, and it just feels a bit forced. But in this situation, I kind of liked it. At first, I was like, oh no, a dream. But then, because in the last episode I said I want to see and read grief and I want for her to come to terms with what she did, I was kind of happy about the dream because I was like, yeah, girl, you shot a breathing human, well, not human, but you shot a person. And that person is dead now.
Yeah.
And that person was a part of like society and that has to weigh on her. And now we see that it does. And that's nice to read.
It's character development and not just plain plot convenience.
Yeah.
I mean, if I think about like both Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, their dreams as a way to get a point of view of the villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's just there to get information across to the protagonist.
Yeah, I think that's the way I am used to dreams written in stories. So I was like, ooh, what is this? A vision? And then it was the killing of Andros again. And I was like, oh, it's something new. But when I took a closer look at the dream, I noticed that she is describing how she feels like she's being watched and there's lurking something in the shadow. So maybe there's something more. Maybe someone is...
Maybe Tamlin watched them.
Maybe that's why he was so near. But, I mean, we had this theory, and I think there will be more hints that this is the case, that all of this was a setup and a plan, that would mean that he ordered a man that is under his command to die for the cause.
He sacrificed him.
Yeah.
And Lucian, who was a friend of Andros, is mad at Feyre, not at Tamlin.
Well, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe for Lucian, this is Feyre killing Andras while he was out on a mission. But Tamlin knows he sent him there to die.
But
I
don't
like
you
this theory.
think, with the developments in chapter 12, that Lucian knows about the plan?
Yeah. Oh, isn't when Feyre is in Prythian for the first day and Lucian comes in for the first time and he's like, is he dead? Could that be like, he's asking like, is it done? And not just, I have worried about him and I want to know what happened. But he's like, is it done? I read that very differently the first time because I thought they were lovers.
Same.
I read it as like very grieving and him just wanting to know what happened to like his boyfriend. But now maybe he was just a piece in the game. Oh well, the hands were up.
Well, moving on to chapter 12.
AKA the most basic fantasy YA romance chapter ever.
Yes.
This chapter is like 2 common tropes that are just,
Yes.
I don't know, convenient for the story.
So yeah, after her dream, Feyre starts wandering the halls in the middle of the night, and she tries to fashion a map using X's to mark possible hiding spots and exits. And she decides she wants to use her time alone when no one else is awake to look at the paintings.
But first, we learn that she can't read, which is an information about her character, and which also makes me hate her father even more.
That's true.
I mean, her dad is like a noble man, I guess. He knows how to read, and that's why he got so far in his life. And that he just, after they like fell from grace, he didn't even bother to teach his daughter how to read.
Yeah.
Fuck this man.
He sucks. I think I like the fact that she can't read. I mean, not from like a character position. Her father sucks for not teaching her, but like from a reader's perspective, I think it's kind of cool that she has, I mean, it's not a disability, but it's a limitation. And it's always nice to have a main character that is not awfully good at everything and capable of everything. But I really hope that if she ever learns to read, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen now, that it's a process. Because I think if you introduce a character with some disability or handicap or something that makes them different than other people, you have to stick with it and live with the consequences. And now I'm bringing up D&D. But in another campaign we played, a friend of ours played a blind character, and he was very quickly very like bored and disappointed by this character, because having a blind character means you have a blind character and the character can do certain things, and that limited his gameplay, and then he quickly changed his character. And I'm not saying like, oh, he sucks for that. Of course not. But I think if you decide to have someone with some kind of disability, you have to stick with it and accept that they can't do certain things. So I don't want the next chapter to be like, over the last 2 weeks, Tamlin lent me every book he had and now I can write. Good man. That would frustrate me. I feel like her being illiterate has to mean something. Even if it's just that she cannot read something that will come up and might be important.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Do you think...
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Do you think she will teach herself to read? Or do you think Tamlin will teach her? Or
I think Tamlin will teach her, and I don't like that.
I fear so too.
I think her not being able to read could be very easily used for some very frustrating stuff. Because she could walk into his study or something and find letters.
Yes.
And she will not be able to read. Because I think it's a very common trope that a character finds like some correspondence which outs their intentions. And then we know about it. But if she finds a letter and is like, it has a very official stamp on it. That's all I can tell. That's kind of interesting.
And also because it's first person and not third person, we cannot have more information than her.
Yeah. And it's a good thing we know it now. Because if she found that letter and then was like, well, bad thing, I can't read. That would be just, it would feel, oh, how convenient.
Well done, Sarah. Good writing.
But now that we know, and it wasn't like part of the plot in this chapter, it feels just a bit more natural, I think.
Yes. So when she's gazing upon the paintings or starting to gaze upon the paintings, Tamlin has his epic entrance.
That was so metal.
I thought it was very funny how epic it was described. And it was kind of enhanced because I was listening to the Interstellar soundtrack while reading it. But yeah, I'd like to quote it for you guys now.
Thanks.
A breeze announced his arrival, and I turned from the table toward the long hall to the open glass doors to the garden. I'd forgotten how huge he was in this form, forgotten the curled horns and lupine face, the bear-like body that moved with a feline fluidity. His green eyes glowed in the darkness, fixing on me as the doors snicked shut behind him. The clicking on claws on marble filled the hall. She likes her alliterations.
Yeah, that was pretty epic.
Yep.
I think the sentence, a breeze announced his arrival.
Yes.
It's just very cool.
She's like, damn. And then he is there. This huge man with his muscles and horns.
Elkhorns. That's actually more funny than anything.
Yeah.
Just imagine like he would be too tall for the door and he stands there and he goes like, oh, fuck, I hit my horns. And then he has to duck.
Yeah. So while walking along this long hall, he turns into his human form again. And then I wondered, how do his clothes work?
I have an answer for that. Oh, well, she has an answer for that in another book. Because in the Throne of Glass series, Fae are also capable of changing forms. And she describes Tamlin changing form with a blinding flash.
Yes.
So it has like a visual aspect to it, which is kind of interesting. It's not just forming, but I imagine it's like a flash and then he's humanish again. And then a flash and he's a beast. There's no like transformation. It's just...
But
Yeah.
then also interesting that he can transform like his claw only.
Yeah.
Like, does
It
that
always
make a tiny
flashes.
light?
What was I about to say? Oh yeah, in Throne of Glass, a character changes form. He also changes with a flash, so Sarah J. Maas is consistent with that. And I think, I did not find the quote, but I think she asks, the main character asks, where do your clothes go? And I think he just goes, well, they just go into the limbo. It's magic.
But then again, I mean, I assume Tamlin fought the bog in his beast form, but his clothes are shredded.
That's right.
Like, how did that happen?
Maybe he started fighting in his Fae form and then
Maybe, yeah.
mid-fight transformed into the beast.
He was like, I can do this as me. Oh, no shit, I can't. Fuck, better transform.
Well, maybe it's a good technique. You could just sneak up on the thing while you're slim and humanish, and then maybe it jumps on you. And while it's very close to you, you transform into the beast.
Or maybe he let himself be swallowed by the bog in his human form and then turned into his beast in its belly and then ripped his way out of there and killed him by that.
Okay. Maybe. Now I forgot what I wanted to say. So we learn that Tamlin is still mentally somewhat in fighting mode. And yeah, this entrance scene is followed by a romance story cliche where Tamlin's hand is injured and Feyre...
As soon as I read that, I was like, no,
I was
please,
cringing.
please don't give us a sexy Feyre fixes him up scene.
But yeah, Feyre does. Maybe it's not as sexy as Lukas might have feared, but maybe it is, because his hand is injured and Feyre cleans and bandages the wound.
She goes like, you're hurt. And I wrote down, of course he is. Of course she patches him up. Of course the wound is magically healing. Of course she is awkward about touching him.
Yeah, and while they talk a bit before she fixes him up, it says like drip, drip, drip. And I wondered if that's his blood or her drooling on the floor.
Do you remember if she described that it was maybe raining or something? I would imagine it would be way sexier if he was
Wet.
dripping wet from rain and his clothes were clinging to his body, probably a white shirt on his rippled chest.
It doesn't say that, but there
can
is the
imagine it.
headcanon. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a very often used trope and a cliche,
Yeah.
but it still can be romantic. I have to admit, I have just seen a scene in visual media where it was quite cute.
What media?
A Bridgerton.
Oh.
A what?
Bridgerton.
Oh. Yeah, when I read that, I got Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man flashbacks, because I feel like there's also that
He
scene.
does it too.
I got every YA fantasy book I ever read flashbacks, I think. It's such a common thing to have, like, the broody, strong male protagonist be vulnerable and needs someone to patch them up. It's just, I think you have to get very close to someone if you take care of them, and you have to be very thorough and careful. Like, you probably have to wash it out. So, you know, washing someone is usually a very intimate thing, and then you do it to them. And it's kind of, it's just a very vulnerable moment. And
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Feyre gives him a good old sponge bath.
Yeah.
I still think it would have been better if the slashes on his chest would have been actually on his body too, because I think that would have been a profounder scene. He would have been in a far more vulnerable state.
She makes a bit of a fuss about a little cut on his hand.
Yeah, so that scene happens. I just had to get past it somehow, and it's not as bad as I expected.
I actually, like, while being very cringed out and being very frustrated with it, I was also a bit giggly, because I felt so nostalgic about it and kind of thrown back to me being, I don't know, 14 and reading scenes like that and being, oh, the two people I ship are finally starting together. Because whenever someone gets hurt, that's the moment you know, this is happening, the romance is starting. And I'm excited the sizzling part might finally happen. I'm not excited it's Tamlin.
Well, his skin is described as being hot, so maybe that's where it's sizzling.
The blood on his hand is just being...
No, I think her drool on his hand is just...
Oh, stop.
I think she's not yet in the drooling stage, because at the same time that she's admiring his...
male beauty?
Yes, his admirable form, she is also scared to touch him and to
Yeah,
come
that's
near
true.
him. At the end of the scene, Tamlin is busting out his complimenting skills again, and he says, "You aren't what I expected for a human." And I was like, okay.
That can mean everything.
Lea, you should just act Tamlin in the next audiobook adaptation, please.
Gladly, call me, I will do it.
Yeah, it was something. I guess, I don't know. I have no further thoughts.
So, but the next morning, Feyre finally just wants to look at the art. But she overhears an argument between Tamlin and Lucian.
What? I've never read that before in a story.
Eavesdropping? Huh?
I was very happy about it, because I was like, ooh, things are happening, let's go.
And I just wanna start this by a quote. I could glimpse the two of them standing almost face to face. And I just wrote in my book, sizzling. Because maybe we can finally get a true love triangle, where it's an actual triangle.
That would be awesome.
Challengers sends their regards.
Good movie.
Yes. Yeah, so I think we should try to unpack this whole argument. And
I just misread my notes. I wrote down the fight, Lucian versus, and I said Tam, but it reads like Tom. And just changing this one letter makes it so funny. Imagine if this guy's name was Tom.
Tamlin.
Shout out to all the Toms out there. You're great.
It's
We
a fine name,
appreciate
just
you.
not for
But
a
not
high
in this
Fae lord.
story. Yeah, I don't really have much notes. I'm just reading Tam has daddy issues.
Yeah, so Lucian is scolding Tamlin that he is apparently not doing what he is supposed to be doing. He is not even trying to fake it anymore. Whatever that might be. They don't have much time left for whatever their plan is. And
For what?
we don't know. Tamlin is supposed to continue what his father used to do, who did something presumably horrible to their kind and their land, probably referring to mortals. And he doesn't want to be that kind of person. His father was. But if Tamlin doesn't follow through with his plan, he ruins everything. And this whole thing escalates into them using magic against each other, but we don't know what they're actually magicking about. Because Feyre can just smell it. So I don't know what... That's just a lot of information.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say no thoughts.
Head empty. Elaine.
I mean, it's a lot to take in. And it's again a point we are bombarded with half-truths or half-informations that we have to take in and keep with us and have in our mind so that they might make sense later. Yeah, but Feyre is discovered at the door, listening in, and she has the funniest excuse. I was so proud of her and had to laugh because she goes like, "Oh, Lucien, do you want to ride out? I just was wondering if you would like to ride out." But Lucien is an asshole and declines and says that Tamlin will spend time with her.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we abandon the high stakes plot and go back to sitcom shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very...
Back and forth.
Yes. And Feyre still doesn't really want to spend time with Tamlin alone because she's sending this pleading look toward Lucien and he's like, "Nope, I'm gonna fuck off." Feyre has to accept her fate and she confesses to Tamlin that she doesn't actually like hunting. And Tamlin asks what she would rather like to be doing. But we do not learn what Feyre answers. I assumed she told him that she wants to look at the art because that was her plan
that's what I
for
also
like
thought.
2 days.
But
I kind of
Is she
assumed she
like-
wanted to see books.
yeah, if she
Yeah.
goes to the study, maybe she wants to.
But yeah, maybe
Start
the
reading or
paintings as
something.
well.
Yeah, so there are some hints what she might want to be doing, but it is not explicitly said. Tamlin leads Feyre through the hallways and the garden, and they have a somewhat genuine, deep talk. And Feyre remarks how he seems to be just his genuine self right now. And I was like, are you stupid?
She's like, he's just Tamlin right now. And I was like, why do you think you know what just Tamlin is?
Especially, she just overheard a conversation where Lucien scolds Tamlin that he is not faking his shit enough. And now he's like, now I'm kind to you again. How? I mean, sure, enjoy him being kind, but be aware that he probably is... I'm convinced he's faking it and he is supposed to get near to her at some point. And I had a thought a few chapters ago. We were discussing the court, and I started watching Bridgerton again, as I said. It's all about the courting season at the royal court, where they have to find partners and
Yeah, that
husbands.
just sounds like the breeding season.
Yeah, but maybe the court is the courting, and he has to do the court with her.
Oh, so when Lucien reacted like, "How do you know about the court?" He was like already planning his move on Feyre.
No, I think they're planning Tamlin's move on Feyre, that he has to be near to her and close to her and maybe marry her, I don't know, whatever. And that's their plan. Well, I think it's connected to all the other theories that we had, that it has something to do with fighting the blight and getting on top of inner conflicts and shit.
And also on top of Feyre.
I think that might be the solution to all the other things. And so he has to get close to her, but he was rude to her. And so Tamlin was like, come on. No, not Tamlin. Lucien was like, come on, be kind to her. Try to flirt. Why are you just sucking at this right now? And he's like, no, I don't want to be fake. I want to be real. And Lucien is like, no, do the thing. Do what you're supposed to do. And now he's like, okay, I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be kind to you right now to do his job.
Just in case this might turn into another 7 queen
Yes.
thingy, I just want to say, I think the court is just the court. Like, you have Prythian, and then Prythian is separated into, like, the different areas, like Spring and stuff, and they are overseen by courts.
Oh,
I don't think...
Feyre doesn't know. Feyre hasn't seen the map in the book. She doesn't know about there being 7 courts.
Yeah, I don't think humans know there is a spring court and a autumn court and winter court and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think maybe the map spoiled us more than we know right now.
Maybe.
If
Maybe.
that's like an actual secret that there are 7 different courts.
I mean, it has never been called spring court yet.
No.
Has it? He's just...
It's
Yeah,
It's my
that's
court
true.
and it's spring.
Yeah, I mean, Feyre
Yeah.
was just like, oh, it's nice weather here.
Yeah.
I mean, she has no reason to believe that there are other courts that have different seasons.
I mean, we have no other indication besides the weather that we are in spring court.
That's
I
true.
mean, maybe weather in winter court,
It's nice.
It's also spring. And they're just called winter court. We don't know. Maybe we are somewhere.
mean, again, we saw the map in spring court. It's closest to the mortal
I think
lands,
we're in
but-
spring court.
But we do not have a clear indication.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
meant.
So I gave Feyre a lot of shit for not assuming the conversation Tamlin and Lucien had were about her. But then I tried to put myself in her shoes. She's strongly holding on to this belief that she is insignificant, which was said to her.
I mean, she's basically being gaslit into believing that she's totally insignificant.
And also, I mean, we know we are reading a story, so we expect something to happen.
Yeah.
She is like, well, fuck, my life is over. I guess I'm gonna start a new life. I'd like to know what's going on here, but I can understand why they're not telling me shit because I don't belong here.
It's a good start. She even listened.
Yes.
She stayed to eavesdrop and she stayed to, at least hear what's going on, even though she doesn't think it's about her.
Yeah. And while they're walking through the sun, Tamlin is described as the most beautiful creature there is. His golden hair caught and held the morning light as if it were spun from the sun itself. Blonde boy going
Simp.
strong. Yeah. I just had to write that down. It was such a sentence. But they talk about how Feyre always had to fend for herself and teach everything to survive by herself. Then he reveals that he knows that she stole a knife from the dinner table and that she listened in on the fight with Lucien.
And he's like, I could smell the fear on you. I was like, bah, no.
But what I noticed when Feyre asks about what don't you have time for? What are you running out of time of? Tamlin looks around scrutinizingly if someone might have overheard them or something, and then he tries to play it off cool and, no, I'm immortal, I have time for everything. So I think the people in his court or in his estate do not know that the situation might be dire or something.
Yeah, maybe with magic being weakened, their lifespans are being weakened. Maybe immortality is not what it used to be. Maybe they get old, but not as old, and maybe they can die now, and he doesn't want her to know that.
Interesting.
Interesting.
That would explain why he is carrying knives and weapons
to
that are not of
fight
ash.
his age.
No, but to fight other Fae if they are in conflict with other courts, and that's what you wondered about in, I think, the first episode or something.
I think so.
So,
It's been a long time.
for what would they need weapons? Do they have other weapons? And, I mean, Lucien has a big sword. Tamlin wears his plethora of knives. He has to use them against someone.
Squirrels.
Well, the monster's crossing his border. But yeah.
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 And, well,
but I mean, at least the Puca, I think it's also just a fairy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it should have like the same healing magic.
But he says, well, no, the Bogger, he says he was crafted, well, his bite was crafted to slow
The healing.
the healing ability. The word crafted in here?
Sounds like they're doing some bioengineering in some of the courts. I can imagine like the winter court being the creepy one where they, I don't know, have all these examining tubes and dissecting Fae and building horrible creatures.
Maybe just a huge refrigerator that's perfect for like a DNA bank or something like that.
Maybe they are mixing humans with Fae and
Maybe Feyre is a child of winter.
maybe the spring court heard about some other court making plans to raise half-Fae children or whatever, and they were like, we need one on our side because reasons. And they were like, we will hatch this plan now, and then they have to marry so they can rule both courts because she is the heir to another court. Sure.
Oh,
I think we're losing ourselves again.
Let's rein it back then.
that's just the magic of Conspiracy Corner. We can just lose ourselves in the bullshit.
Yeah, but we do learn that the borders between courts are crumbling, and
They're not just crumbling, they vanished already.
you're right, yes. And Feyre now suspects there might be a war or a revolution brewing. And I was like, in a conflict! And then Tamlin leads her to the study, which apparently Feyre had requested. And the chapter ends with the words, I saw what lay beyond him, and my stomach twisted.
Yeah,
and I was
just-
like, what?
I just wrote in my notes, Prithian is different, everything sucks. Tam shows her his sex dungeon.
He is Christian
End
Grey.
of the chapter.
Tamlin Grey.
I have so many Christian Grey vibes from Tamlin.
Did you read?
I didn't read it and I haven't seen the movies, but I have seen my fair share of spiteful film reviews about the movies, so I kind of know what's going on there.
I actually read the first book.
How
But I
was
don't
it?
remember anything, I have to admit.
Feyre is either A, very dramatic about the site of a big study, or B,
his big study.
there's something very surprising behind the
Yeah,
store.
that's what I wondered when I finished this chapter. Do we have to unpack another big plot twist, or is she just like,
So many
that's
books.
a lot of books?
Yeah, I have, and I feel like you have too, a negative association with the phrase a twisting stomach. And I was like, so no art?
Or maybe disgusting art?
So yeah, as I said, at some point in chapter 11, I felt like I had understood where the story was going, that it's not like a big action going on, but it will revolve around how she develops as a person and her feelings toward either Tamlin and or Lucian. And now there's this bigger conflict thrown in there again, but we also just get bits and pieces for it. So I'm conflicted again because I'm like, give it to me and don't just dance around
Yeah.
it. I just want to get to the juice.
Yeah, I think that's quite common in fantasy book series. I guess the authors often try to make the first book somewhat self-conclusive-ish to make it more attractive to the publisher. And then when the publisher sees people love that shit, and then they get like greenlit to do an overarching story in like the next 5 books.
I mean, maybe that's just the way the first book in the series often works, that there is setup for the story of the book as well as setup for the whole series. So there might be a lot of things that are not resolved or resolvable yet. And it's just setup.
Sad. I just want to see the wall. Sarah, is that so hard?
Behind the study doors,
Yeah.
there is a portal to the wall.
My stomach twisted. It was the immortal study wall.
So, do you feel hopeful or do you feel resentful or some other way?
I feel kind of excited just because I want to find out if this is a big plot twist or just a cool study.
I'm conflicted. I don't like the way this book is following so many well-known tropes and cliches at this point. Because in the beginning, I felt it was somewhat different. But
I see your
now,
point.
it just feels like every other book I read when I was 14. And that kind of annoys me. But then this book is from a time when all the other books I read when I was 14 came out. So I don't know if this is fairy judgment. I think I'm excited to get to book 2. I feel like I will not vibe with book 1, but maybe once I have book 1 behind myself, I can enjoy a bigger story. Because I think it's what you said, Lukas, that the first one is setting up everything and has to be conclusive at the same time. And then book 2 opens up the big world.
I still kind of hope that we get these cliche and trope setups for them to be subverted soon. I mean, we are like not even a quarter through this book, which kind of surprised me because we've been talking about this for weeks now. Yeah, we're just at a slow pace and I hope there's more to come. How do you feel there?
I think I don't often read books like this, but I do like reading fantasy. But when I do, it's often YA. And there is not a lot of big plot, epic plot happening right now. So it's about romance and her feelings and whatever. And then the big plot happens, but not a lot. So I'm torn. I think I'm not used to the structure, and that's what confuses me a little bit. But I think I can get used to it.
So you think YA is more exciting right away?
I don't know if it's more exciting, but I think I'm more used to it, so I understand it better and I know what to expect. Then again, it's made so that people can understand it better because it's for younger people. Maybe it's time to grow.
But do you guys know what the people listening to this podcast can definitely expect? A new episode in 2 weeks!
Woo!
So follow this podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
And follow us on Instagram @GettingFadePod.
Tell us what you think and maybe chat with us about our or your theories.
Send us some other feedback if we get things wrong or if we get things right and you agree. But please don't send any spoilers so we can go on with this podcast project.
So if there's something you don't like about this podcast, just slide in our DMs and tell us. And if there's something you do like about this podcast, slide in the official podcast reviews of your podcasting app and leave a 5-star review. Thanks.
Also tell your librarian when you check out ACOTAR because you want to read it yourself.
And check out where they put it in their shelves, if it's YA or fantasy or new adult, and then correct them because now you know the truth and nothing but the truth. And then tell your teachers and your mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and other siblings.
Right after this episode, just go out to the next bookstore and correct everyone. just take all the ACOTAR books and put them in the correct section, please. Thanks.
Tell them Getting Fae'd sends you.
Yeah. So I guess we will see you next time when we are
Getting Fae'd!